Hello, moviegoers. I'm Scott.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Luke.
I'm Ari.
And this is the No Way to Hollywood podcast. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Welcome.
Thanks very much.
As you can tell, we have a guest with us tonight.
Hello.
Ari,
It's her.
Thank you for it's
her.
This one.
She's the guest.
She's the guest. If you didn't know, yeah, you couldn't tell.
thank you for being with us tonight. Can you let the people out there know how you know us and why in the world you'd want to know us?
Valid questions, all of these.
Sure thing. Yeah, so I do movie night with Luke and Jonathan. And
sometimes me.
He doesn't
sometimes
show up.
you.
He never shows up.
Never.
All right, and can you tell us why you like movies?
I like seeing the storylines and all the stories that people create and seeing how the characters develop.
Okay, and do you have one movie that you've watched more than any other movie in your life?
Probably Atlantis, to be honest. We watched it so much as a kid, my brothers could quote the whole movie.
There you go.
So you didn't really answer the question of like, why would you be here on this show?
All right, so I enjoy hearing you guys talk about movies, and I'm honored to be on your podcast.
Wow.
Honored. That's a good word.
We're really grateful. We're really grateful for you to be
Very
here.
grateful.
And for those of you who don't know, Ari is kind of our first fan, which is really awesome. We really like that. She's been watching us do stuff even back with like after the movies and stuff. So she's been hanging with us when it's been horrible. So thanks for being here when we're getting awesome because we got Scott as a moderator.
Hey, it's Scott.
Apparently I'm awesome. That's what I'm going to take away from that today. But let's go ahead and jump into tonight. Our topic for tonight is remakes. Jonathan, can you help us out and just kind of give a brief description of a remake for us?
A remake is about what it sounds like. It's when there's a film that's already been made, once at least, maybe even twice or three times. But that twice and three times, anytime you make it again, you are remaking that movie, remaking that story. So specifically in Hollywood, right, it's anytime there's a movie that's already been made and you're making it again.
So you're telling me if they've made the movie before but you want to make it again, it's a remake?
Yes.
Okay.
And an interesting thing to note is that remakes seem to happen at about a 30-year cycle. It's not quite mathematically that set, but often when you've seen a movie, it's like, oh, it's been 30 years. That's interesting, and it's give or take some, but that's about the cycle at which they go. Like, oh, it's time for a new generation, which is pretty cool.
All right, and a little bit on that, movies have been remade for quite a while. I mean, they've been remaking movies for some time. However, since about the mid-90s, there's been an increase in the number of remakes made. A particular strong period happened from about 2001 to 2011, which kind of peaked right around the 2004, 2005, 2006. And the big remake movie that was made during that time was the new War of the Worlds movie. That movie impacted significantly and is actually the fourth ranking adjusted gross movie remake of all time.
Sorry, he's... Oh.
I have a question, Scott.
Yes?
What is wrong with people?
I don't know the answer to that, Luke,
Look. I want to, in defense of War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, all right? I just want to say, that opening sequence that Spielberg did with, like, when the aliens show up and all of that, fantastic. Everything else, it's not as easy to watch. But that, fantastic.
So in general, I'd love to get some more feelings on remakes and why we like them or why we don't like them.
Okay, for the most part, I am half and half on remakes because they do it shot for shot. It's like it's already been done before, you don't need to do it. But I like it better when they adapt the story more and make it different.
So what's an adaptation remake that you like?
The closest one that can bring to mind is, I think, Cinderella.
Interesting.
For me, what I like about remakes is often when you take a movie that wasn't phenomenal, but had a kind of a following in the past, and then bringing it to a modern audience, because it's been 30 years, nobody's going back and watching that old crazy stuff, how many people watch black and white films, that kind of thing, and so being able to see it. The trouble that I have often with modern remakes is that I don't feel like they get the film, and so you got kind of like this poorly made like shadow of what was there, and you're like, why did you do that? I want to experience. But on the other hand, like movies like Scapegoat or whatever, where I didn't even you don't even know that it's a remake, and then you're like, oh, it's a remake, but like it's good, right? So it's like this new film for me, and then people are like, oh, you didn't know it was a remake? Oh, okay, cool. So there's kind of two phases of that. And then there's other films you're like, why are you remaking this classic? Kind of like if somebody was like, I'm gonna go remake Casablanca, you're like, why? Just go watch the original. It's great. So yeah, that's my feeling.
Remakes, I'm struggling to try to remember or think of one at the moment that I really like. It's likely that if I do like it, it was my first exposure to that film at all. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know it was a remake. Is likely why I liked it, because it was just, this is a fresh idea. No, it's not. It's been remade, which is great. I mean, there is something valuable about saying this is a story. I mean, how many times has Robin Hood been made into a story? Right, like there are stories that King Arthur. There are stories that have been around forever, and there's a good reason to remake them, because even if you adapt them or change them a little bit or whatever, it's a good story. It's fundamentally something we kind of want to repeat and remind ourselves of in different ways. We want to see the modern version of that, and so that can be nice. But I tend to find most remakes, especially these days, the remakes I'm aware of, completely unnecessary and truly foolhardy. It's like, why? They remade RoboCop. Does anybody remember that they actually remade RoboCop? Does anybody understand or remember that happened relatively recently?
Yeah, no, I do remember that.
I remember.
I had zero desire to see the new one, though.
Right, yeah. And that you could obviously argue that they just did it poorly, sure, but there's also something to be said about that first RoboCop. I'm not a huge fan of it myself. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I see the quality of it. I see what people love about it. It's a very specific time, specific director, and the whole thing they do is just very, very specific. And you can't redo that. Now, could you try to get the same tone and try to modernize it? Sure, but the new one didn't even try to do that. And my biggest issue with remakes is this. And I'm kind of in the same place that you are, Luke. My biggest thing is I don't know why we remake movies that are already great. I think we should be remaking movies that were mediocre or bad, because that's an opportunity to make something good, or take something that was maybe had the potential to be great, and then make it great and try that again, as opposed to what the reason I think why we make remakes, why does Hollywood do it? Because it's a money tag, right? It's a what RoboCop is. Come see RoboCop again because you're familiar with it, and if you're new to it, great, we'll get you to. But like really, it's trying to make this brand that you may have heard of, and trying to brand something, and that's understandable from a business perspective. But what I want from remakes, I want you to take some movie that was like mediocre but could have been great, and then suddenly make it a really great film.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an interesting point, Jonathan, about like the reason that Hollywood is doing remakes is, for the most part, it's getting new generations into the story, but I think it's more on the money side of anything, and you get these. The business side of Hollywood that is so focused on how can I make $1, right? The remake isn't easy, like, hey, this did well before, we're going to get a crowd, we know we're going to get a crowd, so let's remake it and get that crowd so we can get our money.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I agree, but at the same time, there is something to be said for film is a business, and it's okay to say, hey, let's pursue this money. It's a question of how are you pursuing it? Why are you pursuing it? That's more where I run into issues, because we're making this film simply to try and squeeze some more money out of this, instead of we really want to like launch this thing, and that's the challenge. And it's hard to know what the people's motivation really is behind all of it, I think. And so I don't want to poo-poo too much on we want to make money, because you need to make money so you can make more movies. Like that's important, right? Like there has to be money for it. So I don't want to push it too hard on that.
I mean, if we're going to talk about remakes, it's a little bit more refined than that too, because you can do the reboot cool, right? That here's a sequel technically, but really we're rebooting the whole franchise. I mean, the one I always think of is the first of the new Star Treks, where we've got a story where basically we can say that it's both the original, everything happened, and it's a sequel to all of that, but really time travel and everything is erased and we can do whatever we want, and now it's which at the time especially I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was a phenomenal smart way of doing that, and but that started a trend, right? And even I mean Star Wars has actually got an actual sequel side to it. It is actually a sequel, but you can obviously see this level of trying to bring the franchise back and a little bit of that sort of reboot-coolness to it because it's been so many years later. But remakes just have some of that tendency too, where
Right.
you know that's also a part of it.
Yeah, and I think with the Star Wars example, you bring up a good point about the technology of movies. So, one of the issues that I have with Star Wars is the original trilogy was shot with the best technology of the time, which is very limited compared to what we have today. And they had to rely more on the storytelling elements and other things in it to actually make the movie that it had. So Lucas, when he decided to make the prequels and say, well, we're going to use the best technology of today, which is so much better, created a film in the past that looks like it's more advanced than the story that's about to happen afterwards, with no explanation as to why. So you kind of run into some of those issues. And, you know, I also think of War of the Worlds, for instance. The original, shot way back in the day, very simple technology, and then Tom Cruise comes along and says, well, now we can do all these other great, amazing things, and ends up focusing so much on those other things that you miss that storytelling element.
And yeah, okay, storytelling, yes, that is paramount to telling stories through film. I actually don't care if your film looks better now or whatever, and I don't actually care about the whole like, oh no, it's in the past, but it's better. Like, I truly don't care about that. I think where it tends to break down more is when the person had to be creative because they were limited in what they had, and they were being pushed back on by people, versus somebody who has unlimited resources and no one to tell them no. That's where it tends to fall apart for me. But going back to this, like, remake thing, I think this is all bouncing along the idea of like, now we're doing, Aladdin 2 or what, where it's just like, did you have a story, or are you just making it because you can go straight to video or whatever, right? Like, that's more where it's like, I don't see the heart behind it. It's just, let's just do something because it's hot right now or whatever.
Sure. Well, I'd like to do a little bit more of a case study and focus in on one film, and because we are sitting in a point in time when the top 3 adjusted gross remakes of all time happen to be Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Aladdin. We have an opportunity with Disney about to release Mulan to kind of go a little bit in depth and kind of talk about a little bit of hopes and dreams and what would make the Mulan remake good and what would make it bad. Ari, I know Mulan is a film that you enjoy.
Yes.
Why don't you start us off and just kind of give us some of your thoughts about the original and what you're hoping for with the remake?
Okay, so with the original Mulan, I liked the story more than some of the characters. For the most part, because the characters, they were trying to like do a certain stereotype and like trying to like do away from stuff Disney did previously.
So can you give an example of that? Like what are you talking about with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I need a movie before Mulan.
Well, no, like within Mulan, like what was a stereotype that you were like, oh, they're moving away from that?
Okay, yeah. Alright, so yeah, Mulan takes place in China, and yeah, they have her like be this warrior and everything, but they also have the grandma who is supposed to be like quiet and everything normally, but they have her all crazy and out there.
So just breaking expectations more than anything.
Yes.
How do you hope that the remake of Mulan does some of those same things? Like, do you want it to do that? Do you not want it to do that?
I think for the most part for the new one, because it looks like they're adding more characters, so might go further in depth into the characters and show a side that we might not know about the characters.
Okay. Cool. Luke, you want to kind of answer some of those same questions, expectations? What would make the remake of Mulan good from your perspective?
Well, what I'm excited about seeing in the trailers that I've seen so far, which I just watched, is that they're not just remaking the movie; they're actually retelling the story, and so there are new characters, there are new things that they're doing. They are not just rehashing, retreading what they've done before. And so there's an opportunity here for them to not just say, okay, we're going to make another Mulan movie because everybody wants it, but we're going to make another Mulan movie, and we're starting over with a new script and with a new story kind of thing. You know, instead of just we're just going to redo it and we're going to have a CG dragon this time, and we're going to, you know, like we actually have the opportunity to tell a new story, even though it's the same main story, but like, how are you going about it? What are you doing? You've got this new witch character. You've got all this stuff, which, you know, thematically, we're going to have a girl fight. Fine. Okay. You know, like, but at the same time, like, there's something cool there. Like, how's she going to take on the magic, you know, or whatever? Like, there's some cool things here, you know, and so seeing some of that, I'm excited to see what they do with it, because it's new, unlike all the other ones that I've seen, which are not new, right? Like, maybe there's a new song. I don't care, okay? Like, give me something great to hold on to here, and why are we doing it? Why are we doing this? This is an opportunity for that.
Yeah. Jonathan?
So, I liked Mulan, the animated version, when I was a kid. It came out when I was the appropriate age, basically. I was the demographic when that movie came out. And I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the story. I think that's a good point. I think I enjoyed the story overall more than I enjoyed the characters by any stretch. I think that's a very good observation. And of course, Jerry Goldsmith's score and some of the songs are memorable. But yes, we've entered into this era where Lion King is practically half the movie's just a shot-for-shot remake, and it's really a tech demo. It's a 2-hour tech demo of look at what we can do. Also, The Lion King was a movie, and that's really. I mean, there is some really cool stuff that's coming out of that technology and what they did there. And if you know, I'm honestly okay that it's a tech demo. I'm kind of like, cool. I mean, the prequels to me sort of felt like a tech demo to some extent. And while those tech demos kind of suck, they also lead to some of the coolest things that we enjoy later on. So I'm kind of okay with that. But do I like the Lion King remake? No. It's a shameless, nostalgic cash grab that worked on me and everybody else.
Not me.
That's right. He didn't have any nostalgia. He doesn't care at all. He doesn't care.
And no money from me either.
No money and hyperbole. Anyway, and then there's Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. Aladdin was the one I really didn't like. That one sort of had some changes. I think to try to do some changes, but it also felt like, what do we like? This is I don't know. It just Aladdin was one of those, and Lion King both were movies where because the animated original is actually really good. And there's sequences you remember and just design stuff you remember. You watch these films and you say, okay, now I'm comparing the entire time, and you're doing things like you're doing shot for shot, or you're just doing this is the sequence that I already know, so now I'm just seeing what you're doing with it, and you're not doing as good of a job. You just aren't. It's just not as colorful or as beautiful or as well done as the original animated film.
And I'll link in the description for this video a couple great video essays that go into some of this stuff, because they're awesome. So watch it, and I learned a lot.
So all that set up, trying to get to your actual question about Mulan. This, from what I can tell, from the articles I've read about what they're doing, along with the trailers I've seen, I've been since Lion King. I've been like, yeah, I'm out of this game. Lion King, I'm out of this game. I don't want to be another shameless cash grab. I'm out. Mulan, oh great, what are they gonna do with Mulan? And then I heard they weren't gonna have Mushu, right? And I was like, you know what? I liked Mushu. So if you're gonna do a shot-for-shot remake but not have Mushu, screw you. But then I started to realize there's no songs either, apparently. And I was like, oh, you're gonna get rid of like Be a Man? Like everyone loves that song. And then I started to realize as the trailers came out, wait a minute, are they making a movie? Like, are they actually making a movie? Are they actually like trying to tell a story again? Are they actually trying to do their own thing with it? And then, of course, the newest thing right now is that the PG-13 rating, right? Out of all these, this has now got a PG-13 rating, which means, it's more adult, it's more, which I appreciate. That being said, everything I've seen seems like they're trying to do a martial arts epic that happens to be the story of Mulan. rather than trying to do the animated movie over again in some way and trying to do a cash grab on my nostalgia for it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of my frustration with the previous Disney remakes, live-action remakes, is that you know, it's supposed to be the same story, but then they'll change one or two little things in the story, and for me, Aladdin just fell completely flat because all of a sudden Aladdin wasn't the main character in a movie called Aladdin. Small issues like that, and
Hey, but I get it. I hear it.
So there is part of me that is genuinely scared for Mulan and the change of story and what that's going to bring. But I think because of all the other changes they're making, it could turn out to be the best of the bunch.
I mean, it looks to me like it's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Huns, or something like that. That's what I saw. And for the other remakes, I've only seen one other Disney live-action remake of the animated, and that was Cinderella. And I was like, that dress looks amazing. I've got to see this thing. This is cool. And the rest of the movie, I was like, I don't even know what's going on right now. You know, like this just isn't as good. And that is where there's mastery in the originals. And then it's like, where'd your mastery go? And what hurts me, talking about, you know, box office numbers and stuff, is how much money these like live action, like hedge bet films are making. Like, it's sad.
I think there's a serious argument to be had that the reason they made so much money is actually because of the amount of time that the mastery of the original work has had to infiltrate all of society. And now they're actually making that money again without that team necessarily being the one that's being credited, because I totally agree. Those have some mastery in their animation and the way they tell the story, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, why did I go see Aladdin or why did I go see Lion King? Not because the new one looked particularly good. It's because the new one just did what they always have been doing these days, which is just say, hey, you remember that other one? I'm like, yeah. And that one was really good. And like, we're doing it again. We're going to try some new things. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So Ari, what have you seen? What of the new ones have you seen, and what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I've seen most of the new ones, and for the most part, they're just shot for shot and everything. Because I saw Lion King in the theaters simply because I'm like, that's going to look amazing. That's it.
And did it look amazing?
It looked amazing. Visually.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you get a little sad that they cut out, you know, I just can't wait to be king, or Be Prepared gets cut to like a one verse song, and you're like, but what happened to the rest of it?
I mean, yeah, Be Prepared. I was bummed that we didn't get the full song, but they did kind of do an interesting thing with it, making like a poet. It was like they made Be Prepared into a poetry like slam session. Like, be prepared. It was like a Nazi Hitler speech. And that was the point. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are coming close to the end of tonight's podcast, so as we normally do, guys and gal, what is a movie that is coming out soon that you are looking forward to, and why? And Jonathan, come up with something besides one of the two you shared with us last
Dune. Denis Villeneuve. December. Watch out for that. Otherwise, here's the deal, man. Like who said, this segment's probably gonna have to shift at some point, because I looked at a calendar of the movies coming out. I went through from now till the end of the year. You know what I saw?
Nothing.
No, I saw lots of titles, and they meant nothing to me.
Okay.
Let's see. Mulan is one of the first ones coming out that I actually have an interest in, because of the fact that it's a martial arts epic. I'm like, where's martial arts epics? If it has to be the story of Mulan, fine. But like, where's the martial arts epics? These are great. So that's one. And since I guess maybe that doesn't qualify since we're all talking about that tonight. So another one. Oh man, this is actually hard. Perhaps. Okay, let's talk just briefly about Marvel.
Okay.
Black Widow, I might go see, but I'm not particularly looking forward to it, but I might check it out. So that's another one that's like, when I look at the calendar of movies, it stands out as I may actually go see this. But I'm also sort of starting to check out of Marvel. So
Gee, I thought for sure you were going to say Sonic the Hedgehog. But...
No. No.
Luke, how about you?
Yeah, we're gonna have to change up the segment because I'm not gonna be making it to movies much. However, since we're talking about Mulan and the live action remakes and all that stuff, seeing the trailers, thinking about it, I'm like, I could see myself watching that and not just kind of out of spite, but like,
Spite watch.
but actually like for the enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
And that is actually really refreshing. Okay, so like Hollywood, Disney, if you're watching, more of that, less of all the other stuff.
Also, maybe an original script every once in a while.
All right. How about you?
All right, I'm gonna have to agree with these guys. Mulan.
Okay.
Yeah, but if I had to do one besides Mulan, probably Pixar's new Onward, because Pixar usually does a good job with movies. So probably that one.
Cool. Yeah, Onward was definitely one of the ones I was considering talking about tonight. However, my choice for tonight is going to be The Way Back with Ben Affleck as a fat drunk guy. Because who doesn't want to see him as a fat drunk guy? No, this is kind of my pick for a good heartwarming movie coming up. I'm not expecting it to be brilliant by any stretch of the means, but it does have basketball and sports, which is something I know I enjoy with none of the other panelists enjoying it, and so I'm looking forward to that. So that's my pick for tonight.
I would just like to add to that briefly that apparently one of the articles going around right now is that Ben Affleck apparently stepped away from playing the Batman and directing that movie in part because of an alcoholic problem. So while I don't particularly want to see that movie in general, I imagine that his heart's in that performance.
I'm hoping that's the case. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you again next time.
Bye.